upcycle a tablecloth. So I've been making these dolman sleeve style puff sleeve tops, dresses, inspired by this upcycle that I absolutely love. Today we're going to be making another iteration of this style of top using this tablecloth behind me. Let's measure my tablecloth so that those of you who are following along at home can know what I'm working with. Yeah, I thought I broke something on the floor. 59 by 70.5. I'm going to be working directly on the fabric in terms of drafting the pattern. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can follow the pattern drafting instructions on a piece of paper and then transfer that onto fabric. Folding the fabric in half along the longer side and then folding it again. Is that correct? Yes. So this, when you fold it, this side is going to be the sleeve and going down is going to be the bodice length. Let's discuss the pattern for this top, starting with the neckline. So in the corner where the fabric is on fold, I marked 4 inches horizontally and 4 inches vertically, and I connected these lines with a curve. The sleeves are a large rectangle which I gathered at the hem. I use the full length of the fabric. Of course, you can make the sleeve any length that you want. The width of the sleeve was 15 inches. So from the end of that length marking down 15 inches, this is the part that I gathered. For the length of the bodice, I again used the full length of the fabric. For the width of the bodice, I wanted it to be quite oversized. So I measured the widest part of my bodice, divided that measurement by 4, and then added 5 inches. I marked that measurement and I drew a straight line vertically. Then from the bottom of the sleeve, the bottom of that 15-inch mark that we made earlier, I also drew a straight line horizontally. At the halfway point of both of these lines, I drew a marking and I joined those marks with a curve. And lastly, I wanted the bottom to flare out a bit, so at the hemline, I marked about 2 inches away from that original measurement that we made earlier for the width of the top, and then joined a straight line outward from the midpoint of that vertical bodice line. Fun! This is under the arm and also the side of the bodice. There are 2 of them, obviously, 2 sides. It's one big seam. I'm gonna sew that closed. Right sides facing each other, so. Here's what we've got so far. I'm gonna finish off the neckline. Just gonna fold it in twice and then do the cuffs, and we'll see if there's anything else I'd like to do. So on the neckline, I'm going to do a single stitch all the way around the neck and use that as a guide to fold it in. So here's a stitch line. I'm going to fold the fabric here on top in half, matching up with the stitch line down there, and then fold it in again. Then pin. You can do that all the way around. So it's been about 3 weeks since I last touched this. The last thing I remember doing was the cuffs, which I did not finish.
I cut 2 rectangles for each cuff. The width is my wrist measurement plus 1 inch for seam allowance. The length is 3 inches. I ironed interfacing on one side. Line up the rectangles. At the bottom, fold one side up by ½ inch. Iron it down. Sew them together along the top and sides. Turn cuff right side out and iron. Gather the hem of the sleeve until it matches the width of the cuff. Line cuff up to sleeve. Sew the unfolded side of the cuff down first.
One thing to note is the side of the sleeve that you sew the unfolded side of the cuff to. Assuming that this is the inside of the sleeve, and I lined up the unfolded part of the cuff on that side, then this side where the opening is would be on the outside, which you might want because then you'll be able to control the neatness of the line there. But you could also sew the unfolded side to the outside of the sleeve. So you could line up the unfolded side with the outside of the sleeve. Then this opening would be on the inside. If it matters to you, watch out for that.
Fold cuff over. Push seam allowance into cuff and sew down the other side.
You would sew it down over here.
I decided to hand sew the opening closed using ladder stitch because I didn't want a visible seam. Also sewed hook and eyes as closures.
In order to attach a cuff that opens and closes onto a sewn tube of fabric, you need an opening. Usually a placket is sewn. I didn't do this. What I did instead is to sew a slit. I will link a tutorial in the description box. I need to do some hand sewing to finish that. I think I'm going to do a ladder stitch. I'm going to do a ladder stitch on that. Yeah. I also need to add hook and eyes. Hook and eyes, hook and eyes.
Didn't like the shape of the bottom, so I recut it.
It can lay flat. I have sewn the piece into the curve at the front as well as the back, and this is the middle section. So this is going to be gathered down here to match the length of this and then sew.